The following is a non-profit horror story narration. The story, narrated with full permission and cooperation, is written and owned by the author, who is credited in the subject line and in the description down below, along with a link to the original story. This video may contain some material such as violence, creepiness, jump scares, adult language, and suggested content which may not be suitable for some viewers. Please support the official release, and viewer discretion is advised. I grew up with a favorite older brother who was 3 years older than me, and with an abusive father. My brother was exceptional in everything, so our parents praised him constantly. I, on the other hand, was emotionally abused and neglected by our father. I didn't do well in school, but all the doctors said I was extremely smart. I didn't have many friends, but I saw the difference between my hateful father and the other kids' loving parents. My mother always tried her best to love me, but she was a major pushover. My brother didn't care about father, and he always acted like my superior. Though he did this, he did care for me at one point. Eventually, though, he learned how to manipulate people and turn them into his puppets. It started to become very scary watching him manipulate all of his friends, and even father. And I was the only one who realized it. He never tried to manipulate me. And when he started to use people like that, he stopped showing any form of love towards me. This led me to become completely emotionally detached from everyone in my life. The exception being my mother. Everything changed though when I turned 8. My brother was 12 and had refused to obey father, even in the slightest degree. My father had just gotten demoted and was on the verge of getting fired. Along with my brother's defiance, he began feeling powerless. This led to physical abuse, first starting with me, then my mother. My brother was never abused though. His ability in manipulating others made sure he was never blamed for anything. I still remember the words he said after father had just gotten done beating me and had moved on to my mother. He just laughed at me and said with a cold look in his eyes, "I sure hope they quiet down soon. I was trying to play my game upstairs." He felt no remorse for me or mother. He had grown to look at all of us as if we were his puppets. This abuse went on for years until mother finally took both me and my brother and left our father. We lived somewhere peaceful for a while. My brother still manipulated everyone around him, even tried to manipulate me. When that failed, he would demean me as a human being and pretend I didn't exist once he was done. After a few months though, my father found us. When he did, everything went back to the way it was. My mother was unable to leave and was forced to endure constant physical harm. It was worse than before we left. My brother, however, was unharmed. Then one day, when father was sleeping and I had returned home, my mother had blamed me for everything that had happened. She blamed my very existence for everything that happened. It was in that very moment that she blamed me that I developed a deep hatred towards my father and brother. I was trapped, with only one way out. I skipped school waiting for my opportunity, and eventually it came. It was the middle of the day when everyone had left. A few months before my 10th birthday, I used a hammer and nails to nail all the windows shut from the outside. Then later that night, when my father had drunk himself to sleep and my mother was unconscious, I grabbed countless bottles and cans of alcohol and doused the house with them. When I was done, The house didn't smell any different. I poured a few bottles over the oven and over the stovetop. Then I turned on the oven to 350 degrees and turned on all the burners on low. Then suddenly I heard someone coming down the stairs. "What are you doing?" my brother said as he stared at me with a curious look. I stared back at him with probably the most blank, expressionless face I have ever had. "Nothing. Just setting the house on fire," I said as his face turned to one mixed with unbelief and horror. I slowly backed away from the oven as he came towards me, looking around the house as he noticed the liquor on the floor and walls. "What have you done, Brian?" he said angrily in a quiet voice. Then he reached for me as I grabbed one of Father's half-empty beer bottles that was lying on the table. As my brother came closer and ready to punch me, I smashed the bottle on his head, causing alcohol to splash over his head. He held back a yell as the glass shards fell to the floor. He grabbed his head in pain as he anchored himself, leaning up against the wall. I walked to the front door as he fell to his knees, looking at me with fury in his eyes. "Brian! You better not leave me!" he said, his voice growing louder. I ignored him as I continued towards the door, feeling no remorse. "I'm your brother! Your only brother!" he said, beginning to yell. "Goodbye, Darius," I said with no remorse as I walked out the front door, leaving it open. "Brian!" he yelled as I heard him fumble inside the house. Then, within a few moments, the house went up in flames, and I can hear my brother's screams of pain. After 10 minutes or so, firemen and policemen showed up. Within that 10 minutes, though, I heard the screams of my whole family. When the police asked me what happened, I took no from my brother and acted as if I was sad that my family had died, and as if the fire happened suddenly. It took a while, but after a few years, I was not only emotionally detached, but I had become a complete sociopath. I learned how to mimic behaviors and picked up on patterns that average people did unknowingly. I didn't just learn these behaviors and patterns. I learned how to use and manipulate them to my benefit. It was as if someone had given me an instruction manual for every situation involving normal people. I did eventually get in touch with my emotions again, and I feel incredibly remorseful for what I did to my family. But I did purely for survival. Side note, the autopsy or whatever for my mother revealed that she had died before the fire, due to repeated health trauma. That's all for now.